Now, I would like to introduce our panelists here to discuss the future of real estate and our changing industry. Please give a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, John Mazur, CEO of HomeSnap, Jason Gesing, Executive Vice President, EXP World Holdings Incorporated, Mary Lee Blaylock, President and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties, Curt Beardsley, Vice President of Industry Development at Zillow, Steve Gaines, CEO and Managing Partner of Pacific Sotheby's, and we want to welcome back Stefan Swanepoel as your panel facilitator.
I thought I was getting a 10-minute break, right? They screwed me over. John, thank you. Jason, very cool, very cool. Mary, Curt, Steve, awesome. Super, thank you for joining us. So you guys get to look at the faces and names, and now I have to remember them. This is not fair, right? Okay. I'm going to sit closer to you. Can I sit closer to you? Right. I can sit as close as I want. Good. We're close buddies, right? So what we'd like to do for the next, looks like here 34 minutes. I thought we had maybe 45, but we'll do something like 34 to 45 minutes. We want to talk about the future. My snapshot, which I gave, was just super cool. Steve, I'm going to start on your side. Tell me from your point of view, what is one of the, not necessarily the most, what is one of the big trends or innovations or changes that you've seen in the last 5 years that you think impacts the audience or the industry?
I would guess that the biggest impact is the amount of money entering the business, the juices that flow when you have an opportunity to see an industry changing, and not allowing yourself to be stuck in that old pattern, and looking to look at the people on this stage and say, I can learn something from every single one of them, and I can create a new innovation within my company that is not in competition with them, but allows me to benefit.
Yeah, a lot of change. We can learn from each other, even if it's a competitor. Every time we've seen a new model, if you go back in time and you look at as I said, 1972, the franchises came on board. About a decade later, although Remax was born in 72 as well, it was basically in the 80s when Remax already started growing with the 100% concept. At that time, Keller Williams was born, but it was probably only about a decade later that Keller Williams started getting momentum. There were acquisitions before that, but about a decade later, HFS started buying companies. At that time, the internet was there, but it was probably about a decade later which Zillow started, right? So every time, while something's happening, the next leaders are actually being born and created while we speak. And we're looking over there, and they're being born over here. Crazy, right?
Look right next door.
Right next door, yes. Yeah. We have many companies that are called Open Door, Next Door, My Door, and Your Door. Yeah, all right. Okay, Curt, what do you think?
So forever at Zillow, our passion has been to follow the consumer. And we say the consumer is our North Star. If you've ever walked out in the evening and looked at the night sky, and if you have a telescope and you fix it on a star, and then you walk away to go back inside and make yourself a drink, and you come back out and you take a peek in that telescope, that star has moved. And so the biggest impact has been the constant, steady, and increasing change in the needs and wants of the consumer. And it's been driven by this, primarily. Because the common for those of us who are older, those of us who are immigrants to the digital age, those who are not born into it, will say, hey, we have the information of the world in our pocket, right? We have the information, we have the knowledge of the world in our pocket, but we have this. That's passé. We have moved past needing information. We actually now look to this device to be the remote control for our lives. I want to actually not push a button and get information. I want to push a button and have something happen. I may in the past have gone to this to look up to see a recommendation on something I want to buy. Now I go to this and I buy it. In the past, I might go to this to look up Yelp to see where I want to eat tonight. Now I go to this and I push the button and the food is delivered, or I have a table. So we have a changing mentality to the consumer that says this is no longer a source for information. This is not a source for me to find out something I didn't know. This is not a source for me to turn on the lights. This is a source for me to actually take action. I push button, magic happens, I'm pushing the button, what's happening in real estate? And we have seen that star begin to drift in that area.
So that's not a Palm Pilot, is it?
This is my iPhone wrapped in my motorcycle tire because I'm a biker, but I'll take it out to show it. It is actually real phone.
Now, just to quickly check, when you said you go inside and get a drink, make sure you come out of the North Star's moved, it's not because of the drink. Right? The North Star will move, but it might be for a different reason. But he also said that you're going to press a button and things are going to happen. Think back in your own lives. There was a time 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have come to you and I would have said, listen, hey John, could you give me all your personal information, please? I need to know your credit card and your home address and all the stuff which you don't want to give to anybody. And I'm going to go to Ethernet, and I'm going to type in on, I don't know, let's go to a place called, like something named after South America, River maybe, Amazon.com. I'm going to go to Amazon.com, I'm going to put all your personal information in there, and I'm going to send it to the cyberspace. It's going to go somewhere, I don't know, maybe South America, and I don't know, the mafia. And then it might or might not come back, I don't know, and we're going to ship you something. Now, of course, I made a story out of that, but I mean, 20 years ago, we would have said, are you freaking nuts? I'm not going to give you my stuff. Now, how many of you use Amazon or have a Prime account? Like all of us, right? It's a common thing. There's the shift. We are all shifting all the time. Our real estate industry is not changing. It is changing. Sometimes it's just not changing fast enough. Yes, of course.
So I think great points. And you know, when I look at the future, one of the things that I see in addition to the consumership with mobile, you know, at HomeSnap, we believe, and we've believed for a decade, that productivity for agents and brokerages and all real estate professionals is going to be completely transformed because of mobile. That the future is that you need to be able to run your business directly from your phone. When you look at some of the stats, I was just looking this morning in this beautiful city as I was having my coffee outside, hoping for sun, but no sun. 58% of global internet traffic today is mobile. 60% of Google searches last year were mobile. 98% of users of Facebook access Facebook and Messenger via mobile. As a real estate professional, you have got to be able to do your job and have the data and have the insights and have everything that the consumer needs in a mobile world. I think that's going to be really important. And it also plays into another big trend, which is millennials are now, you know, close to 37% of the home buyers in the marketplace, and they live on mobile. It's over 10 hours a day in some cases. So mobile is just going to be so central to, and it's good news, I think, for people.
So you threw out a bunch of stats, right? Smart man. So if you don't agree with any of the stats, don't worry about it. We know that most stats are made up. We know that they're probably not 100% accurate. We know that I make up stats. We know that we don't agree with all the stats. I know that some of you say, well, not in my neighborhood. That's not the point. The point of a stat or a statistic or a research analysis is to show you the direction, the flow, the movement. It doesn't mind if he said 68% or 72% or 75%. It's more than it was a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Don't get caught up with the little inicky-binicky stuff which is not important. Get the message. Mobile is growing. Younger people like mobile. Mobile is becoming proliferated, it's widely used. Whether Zillow's telling you he's using it, or HomeSnap's saying he's using it, or SDR is using it, or using it, doesn't matter. More and more and more and more and more people are using it. Which means more and more people will put money behind it, they will invest in it, they will come up with more apps, and whatever you think is broken today, some other people also saw it's broken. You're not the first person to see that something doesn't work. Somebody's already working on that fix. It will be fixed because they have to make money back. They have to get their money back. So the fact that Amazon is not making money, so well, Compass is not making money, or XP is not making, I saw their financials come out yesterday, they're not making money. Yeah, their turnover was still 100 times more than yours. They will get it right, they're growing. When you ask them, they will say, well, we're putting the money back to grow the business. At least they have the money to put back in the business. You don't even have the money to put back in the business. So look at the trend line and the purpose. Don't get caught up in the noise stuff. So now I'm going to put EXP on the spot before we get to the wonderful lady in the middle. Jason, give me an indication of what trend or innovation or shift have you seen in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years that you think is like important?
Well, I think, of course, I had the benefit of being at your conference this week, and so I want to try and come up with a couple of additional ones beyond what I've heard. But of course, there's iBuying, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. There's artificial intelligence. I think those
Microphone, iBuyer.
But so on the artificial intelligence side, for instance, I mean, our CRM is already sort of functioning in that way, right? Speaking the language of the consumer, so the consumer sees a house on a site that they like. as an agent, we're thinking number of bedrooms, square footage, location. The consumer's thinking, I want a house that looks like that one, right? So how can you learn that and utilize that? How can you nurture relationships with AI? One of the stats that I learned this week from Jack was $18 billion was put into artificial intelligence and machine learning in 2018, right? So that's a big chunk of money, and probably is just on the verge of emerging into something that we're all going to be very familiar with and using an awful lot. I think on the other side, there continues to be compression on brokerage profits, and this is in what is still, remains a pretty good market, and I think that's something that, owners will have to figure out how to address. I think agent safety tools are becoming more and more a focal point as we continue to read headlines about agents whose lives are taken or who are compromised just as they're trying to do their job. And then last, one of the things, and I don't think it's really, but it seems to me that with online banking and everybody going to online banking now, that that traditional relationship where the agent controlled how things went because the agent had the client and the agent would go to their mortgage person and the agent would go to their title person. I think with millennials, when they're ready to buy, I think it's quite likely that they might be pre-approved and they might go through their online banking, and I think that the relationship may actually begin to start on the mortgage side of the business, and I think that'll be really transformative for the industry.
Let me pick up on the first point he spoke about. When he said AI, for those of you which are not 100% sure, artificial intelligence, the ability for a piece of hardware technology to do something on its own calculation or its own decision or its own intelligence and try and predetermine what it thinks you want next. Now, we understand it's not perfect, but you all use it all the day, all the time. I mean, Siri, your new contour, your garage door opening, your car locking on its own when you're driving somewhere, you're Facebooking somebody that recognizes somebody's photo. I mean, the basis of artificial intelligence is already here. You're already almost addicted to it. You just don't know it yet. And they're trying to make it better and better and better. So the reference I think that he was making to is that its application in real estate is huge. We don't even quite know what that looks like yet, but maybe it could read some photos, it could look at photos, it could interpret photos, it could look at patterns, it could look at buying and families. Yep.
On the contracts, and even on the compliance side, somebody was telling me a law firm, they put their AI to the test and, issue spotting, your classic law school type of exercise. The AI found 92% of the issues, and your classically trained and experienced attorney was somewhere in the low to mid 80s. So I think you look ahead. I mean, what a relief for brokerage owners if they no longer have to worry about the compliance function quite like they used to.
Cool.
Right? Yeah.
An example I gave, which is an average example, but I like giving them because they sometimes make sense. If I asked you all individually, what does the weather outside look like? What's the temperature? What's the degrees? And you all give me a number. There's no doubt that some of you will be right, but you understand that many of you will be off with a degree or 2 or 3, right? But we will probably get a good chunk of you which is right. All that artificial intelligence is doing, it's taking all of yours in numbers, adding it all together, coming up with a calculation in the middle, an average number, and will put out the average for you in a split second. In most cases, the computer will actually be more right than the majority of you. Right? Some of you will also be right, but it'll be more right than the majority of you because it takes the majority of answers which are right and puts them together. So it's just making life easier. It does not mean that it takes the realtor away. You're not going away. You just have to adapt. You have to change. I don't need you to lock my door if my door can lock itself, but that doesn't mean the car went away. The car's still there. WebMD is cool, but they're still doctors. It has changed the paradigm, but not removed the paradigm. You are only going to go away if you're old and tired and you request to retire. Otherwise, we want to keep you. There's probably some people on stage who would like to recruit you. Right? You're desirable at the moment. They want you. Excuse me. Mary, I get so excited about our industry. It's so cool.
There's so many thoughts running through my head. So just a couple to kind of drill it down to what I think applies to the audience here, because you guys are the ones that are the feet on the street, really knocking on the doors all day long and trying to get your next deal done. So taking all of the consumer focus is a critical piece of it, no question. And you have to know where the consumer's eyeballs are. That's what all this technology helps us to do. What I think is applicable to all of you sitting here is what you choose to deploy. And you could choose to deploy 85 things, and you won't do anything well at all. You talked about this earlier. Or you could choose to deploy 2 top things that you know complement what your niche is. And it is down to some of the basics because we can all get overwhelmed with all of the technology and innovation, and we should all be aware of what's out there. You will never be able to utilize it, and it will never ever take away from that personal relationship that you end up building with that client. So don't discount that belly-to-belly, right, Donna? The belly-to-belly relationship that you build at an open house, etc. But you darn well better get the eyeballs on your site, on your apps, and make the tools useful for those consumers. And it's through narrowing it down to market how you need to market to complement your business. And don't do anything else. And the stick-with-itness is hard to deploy in a time when everything's changing right around us. And it's going to continue to change, and it's going to speed up faster.
Yeah. She said complementary. It's not either or, it's not mutually exclusive, it's not, well, you're saying me I have to throw everything out with the baby with the bathwater. She didn't say that, she said complementary. You take the stuff which Zillow talks about, or HomeSnap talks about, it's in addition. It's additional tools to help you make better. You're still going to recruit, you're still going to do the good stuff belly to belly, you're still going to be virtual online, you're just going to use a Zillow platform, you're going to use a HomeSnap product, and all the other vendors out there. Now, you can't use all the vendors because there are many which offer the same product. But once you pick one, it will fail because you don't implement it well enough. It's not because you picked the wrong one. When something doesn't work, in most of the cases, it's you. Because you get to the office, you're distracted, you put it in a box, you put it in a folder, give it to your assistant, you push it to the corner of the office, you spend 5 minutes, you don't read the manual. I mean, how many of you read your iPhone manual? None of you. How many of you read the disclaimers on Facebook? None of you, right? I mean, it's like, so why do you think that you're surprised when you see something that you didn't read? That was to be expected. Start committing to the stuff. All right, now your turn. Yeah, tell us something cool or innovative that you've seen that you think is going to change. Not about HomeSnap. We'll get back to HomeSnap. Something cool that you've seen that you think is going to be awesome.
Something cool that I've seen.
Innovative or a trend or a business or innovation, yeah.
Well, I talked about mobile, and I have to say, I'm a technologist, right? And you've got a lot more experience in this industry, as does everyone else in the audience.
You could be considered the lucky one here.
Yeah, I don't know, but for us, the technology seems to overshadow what this industry is really about, which is about people and about creating an experience for people that is superior. And as you said, the technology is supposed to amplify that and make it easier. You said how many people read their directions when they took their iPhone out. It's because you don't need to. And the technology should be that easy for agents. And if it isn't, and for brokerages, and if it isn't, you should call, excuse my language, bullshit. You don't have time to sit there and do 10 hours of training to get something done. So, something I think that's awesome is that even though you see all this money coming in and you see all these tools and technologies and solutions, the cream's going to rise to the top. And agents and brokerages are going to say, you know what? They're going to cut through everything and they're going to say, this works and I'm going to use it. We saw the same thing in the CRM industry. So everyone heard of a company, Salesforce? So people spend billions. The biggest companies in the world. I'm going to build my own CRM in the cloud. And 90% of them failed miserably. And today, American Express and US Bank and T-Mobile and all the biggest companies use Salesforce. You know why? That's the easiest, that's the best. So you also don't need to, go spend $100 million, which most of us don't have, on technology, right? Just look out there what's best and get it into the org, equip your agents with great productivity tools, and then be awesome. I mean, that's what I learned from agents and brokerages, and that's what we see at HomeSnap every day.
So, great piece of wisdom, right? We don't all have 100 million, right? It's okay. The big companies that do will probably spend stuff and build their own stuff, right? Like Gary Keller made an announcement he's going to invest $1 billion. That's okay. He has $1 billion to invest. It's fine. So let the big companies do it themselves. But for those of us which don't have it, there are many other vendors out there that have built comparable products or similar products. You can buy them in pieces, you can buy them together, you can buy them complementary to each other, integrated, not integrated, pink ones, yellow ones, blue ones. I mean, you can get whatever you want. They're out there. Use them. All right, I'm going to ask the three on that side, if I may, because you guys have been in the industry more than the two on this side. I'm going to ask, we've all been through cycles. Steve, I remember, back in the 80s and 90s, so you've seen franchising, you've seen Keller, you've seen HFS, the old HFS, Prudential, where you were at one stage. So you've seen all the changes. Do you see the changes which we have today? Are they bigger or more or different? Do you think they're going to last? They're going to have an impact? How do you compare anything that you're experiencing today to historically what you experienced in the past?
We are changing every day because we have to.
Okay.
And every day that I have been in the business, I have seen change. So when people say to us, you know, we're the traditional broker, there's no traditional broker left. There is no such thing. I mean, I discovered a BlackBerry, for God's sake, you know, and had to try to use it. You know, the first thing that came up on my BlackBerry was interesting. It was Russian dating. You know,
we had problems with the Russians 20 years ago.
I didn't want to show my BlackBerry to my wife. You know, it just didn't fit. But as
did you use the app? Did you use the app or not?
You know, as we traveled through this experience, if I go to bed tonight thinking that my success will be predicated on what I did yesterday, I'm finished. And when you were using the numbers, I thought to myself, look, I came back into business 6 years ago. My company is number 12. You didn't get that far down. But out of 85,000, you ought to give me some credit.
Yeah. No,
right?
You're great.
Number 12, after having been number 4 once before.
Yeah, you were.
Believe me, what I have brought back into business to become number 12 does not relate to what I did to become number 4.
Not at all.
There's no comparison. There are some consistencies that I think we have to remember as the technology business becomes more available to us. As we have an opportunity to look at people, we also have to have, and I'm going to say this with a little tongue-in-cheek, the compass needs to be moral, right? The compass has to point it true north. The compass has to have the same decision that it always had. It has to do what credits our buyers and sellers with the best possible process. We still have to have integrity. And so we have to watch, right? That integrity is hard to have. A compass, a moral compass is hard to hold to. So let's make sure as we're integrating tech and real estate that we end up with a moral situation that creates a better opportunity for every client. And I think that's a hard thing because we want to jump over here to this new technology. Is that new technology 100% to our advantage or can it be harmful? Do we need to look at all of the ramifications of everything that we do and in the end be able to say, were we contributors to the success of those people who wanted to own the American dream?
Don't get distracted by every shiny toy, right? He said, don't jump. Not every piece of tech is necessarily an improvement. Not every single tech is necessarily a great piece of tech. There are no doubt thousands of pieces of tech that are awesome, but it doesn't mean that every tech you have to have. And you had that tongue-in-cheek comment about, you know, the moral compass. I'm going to say, so you want to build a red wall with purple bricks, right?
Yeah.
Tongue-in-cheek as well, right? Gotta let it go, right?
I was excited to be invited back to this seminar after my last outbreak.
I remember you well. back in the 90s, I remember well. I never left. I just stayed.
You know, you said to me earlier that we spoke together in the 90s, and you knew I
96,
was wacko then.
Yeah.
I think there's a certain amount of wacko that's necessary.
I think so in our industry.
You know, and I think many of the tech people are as wacko as I am.
I think our industry actually thrives on a little bit of craziness because it is truly an industry which those of you which have been here for a long time will understand that craziness absolutely comes from dear love. It is this, many of us haven't chosen this industry, yet we find ourselves in it and we can't see ourselves in any other space, right? It's when it gets into your blood, it becomes who you are, right? It defines who we are. And many of us will consider this the place where we will, our last job we'll ever do. So those of you which are young and hear some of these words which we say, understand that you just haven't got addicted yet, you're going to. This is a wonderful, wonderful industry that is at a, I don't know, nexus or genesis or a crossroad or I don't know, but it's at an exceptional spot in time and you can hit a home run. Mary, I think you told me you've been in the industry also like 30 years?
26 years.
26 years. Tell us from the beginning when you came to now, how have you experienced change, and how should they experience the change going forward?
Yeah, so first of all, I think my first cell phone I could now use as a weapon. It's very large, very big. And so certainly things have changed, and it continues to change. So when you originally asked the question, how has technology changed? How has the industry changed? I mean, my answer was yes, 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 and yes. They've all changed, and they should have. I think today I get uncomfortable of where we're going because I don't know where we're going. All I know is that we better be strategizing about dreaming big and dreaming differently, or we're dead in the water. So if you're uncomfortable, I would encourage you, I call this there are those of us that are new to the industry and those of us that are used. So if you're used, find somebody new and learn from them, and vice versa, because that experience level is critical, and I don't think enough of our selfishness allows us to necessarily explore those. I'm telling you, my 17-year-old, who gets thoroughly disgusted with me when I ask him to do something on my phone, because he wants to do it for me, and I refuse to let him. I want to learn from him. Do that. Get uncomfortable and learn. That's what we've had to do as an industry. All of these different tech providers talk to us on a regular basis. We're just as in awe as you are on what to utilize, what to offer, what to buy into, and what to produce. It's hard, but if you get uncomfortable and you actually dream big, what about Tesla self-driving cars who you're going to send to somebody's house to pick them up to show them the next house that you're going to show? Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, we've got to think differently and create that type of thought process in order to continue to succeed, because we're already different than we were, to your point, yesterday. It's just the way it is.
So the piece of wisdom I got from that, be an apprentice and be a mentor at the same time, right? Buddy up with somebody else that's half your age and double your age, right? I mean, you can learn from both sides of the fence. People that have been around for a very long time have experience and a certain amount of street wisdom and smarts. A young person that doesn't have any of that comes with an amount of glaring openness and frankness and a view of technology that we never had. I think you used the word digital immigrants, right? We're a digital immigrant. I was already in the business before technology came, so technology came after me, so we're new to that space. We can learn from each other. We call it an apprentor, right? An apprentice and a mentor. Be an apprentor. Be one of both. Learn from others and then teach others. Super cool. Nice to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Curt, I remember you way back when. I remember like previous days, like Realtor.com days.
I was before that. I started in 91.
91. Where were you in 91?
Actually, I had my own tech company. We built the first web-based MLS in the U.S.
First web-based MLS in the U.S.
Sold it to GTE, and then we went to put together MRIS at the time, which became Bright MLS now.
Yes, which is now the second largest MLS in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was here I lived through the first sort of digital revolution. I look at things from the technology side. When we went from offline to online, we got rid of the books, and we first started to be able to access the MLS through online, and eventually the web came about. You asked the question, do we think that this one is bigger and more impactful than that? And I think it's always going to look that way when you're in the middle of it. But I also actually do believe that this is. And it's because there are some things that are fundamentally the same. So for example, customer service and customer touch point and providing exceptional value as a realtor to your consumers is important. But the way that those things are done is changing. So for example, the modern consumer, they've been taught this by sites like Netflix and Amazon. They want the people who are servicing them to actually be able to know more about them than maybe sometimes we do. They actually want them to predict what they want before they even have a chance to think of it themselves. We get used to that. When things come up in our feed, things come up in our shopping experience. We say, oh, wow, that's right, I was thinking about that, and that comes out. They want to be able to communicate in ways that is absolutely convenient to them on the time schedule for that. And so yes, this is a human business. In the real estate transaction are all the parts of humanity that we live through. All of the emotion that goes into a sale or to a purchase, or all the emotions that we go through. Someone is either getting divorced, or they're getting married, they're losing kids, they're having kids, their families are changing, their jobs are changing, something is happening. And so the human part of this experience will always be there. But that human needs to then be connected to a technical side that whispers in their ear and it says, this is what you need to say to this person, and it's different than what you say to this person. And that takes a massive amount of information, and it requires this artificial intelligence that sits on top of that. And if you hear, the words like machine learning and artificial intelligence, the best way I understand to tell those apart is machine learning is what computers do really well faster. So that's machine learning. So how do I calculate a number out of 10 billion numbers? The machine can do that really quick. Artificial intelligence is slightly different. Artificial intelligence is what humans do really well, but machines now learn how to do it. Like, can you tell something that's beautiful from something that is not? Can you tell something that is attractive from something that is not? That's something that humans do very well, but actually machines have to struggle to learn it. When our machines begin to learn that, and for you, the practitioners in the field, whispers in your ear, this is not a good time to talk to them, maybe 2 o'clock tomorrow morning is better because it knows something about their background, some information that has gathered, that's when that success that you have as a true provider of the service becomes real. And that's why I think it's bigger, because the tech load to provide that type of service is actually becoming something that's out of the hands sometimes of an ordinary practitioner, unless they have a large company behind them that can actually provide that infrastructure and tech.
I think ultimately it boils down to agents and brokerages just being equipped to have the answers. Like, people ask me, and again, I don't have the experience curve of the folks on this panel, but to me, it seems like 10 years from now, the best brokerages, and I'm a big believer in brands that have been around for 50, 100 years. I mean, there's a lot of shiny new things that come into the market, but they, in most industries, tend to stick around. But they're going to be more like professional services firms. You're going to go to them for answers, complex answers that technology, AI to me is about pattern recognition. So, a consumer asks one of you all, what do you think the prediction is for this market in my house? And you have access immediately to real-time data that can give them an answer that is data-backed, which maybe it took you 30 minutes to get 5 years ago. I think that's where we're going to see things going. But I do think, and this goes a little bit back to your point, our company was funded and has been supported from day one by Steve Case from AOL. And I can tell you, he's much smarter than me. His belief, HomeSnap, as you know, we work with the industry in everything we do. Agents aren't going anywhere and brokerages aren't going anywhere. And as you said, there will be change, there may be less agents, there may be more agents, but ultimately this is a human relationship between an agent and a consumer, and agents are awesome. And brokerages with esteemed histories are awesome. So to me, it's about having the best consumer experience. And for brokerages, that means having the best agent experience, because the agents are the stewards to the consumers. And I think those that do that win. I don't know, I was just thinking about this morning, because there's, I think many here, Shake Shack. Anybody a fan of Shake Shack, the burger joint? So Danny Meyer, he's incredible. Talk about a competitive industry. The restaurant industry is so competitive, razor thin margins, and this guy crushes it with everything that he does. And his mantra is not to put the consumer first, it's to put the people first, the employees first. And because they're the ones who give the experience that's amazing to the customer. And it just seems so simple to me, and he wins on that. He calls it enlightened hospitality. Put the agents first and make them awesome, like so many of these great brokerages do. And I mean, I'd rather talk to you if I'm gonna buy a home in San Diego than look at any piece of technology. So it's pretty simple to me. And I just worry so much, and again, we're a technology company, that we're gonna lose the plot. That all this tech is there to serve you, not the other way around.
Yeah. Tech is great, but we should put it in its rightful place and not let it overpower. Jason, I left you deliberately for last because you're relatively new to our industry, so you have maybe a less filtered view. Many of us which have been in the industry, have been in the industry a long time, have a more fixed kind of an opinion. Yours probably is less influenced. You've been in our industry, what I'm guessing now, 6, 8 years?
First license in 02.
So, 02.
In some form or fashion.
So you're post-2000, I'm sure. Yeah, wow. Not like Steve who talks about the 80s, and Barry talks about the 80s.
Yeah. For me, I think, and I agree with Steve, I mean, you do this out of necessity sometimes, and that's how EXP started. We started out of economic necessity, because back in 2009, you couldn't keep your bricks and mortar open and span territories without going out of business. I think that, I've been a student for probably 6 to 8 years, right, reading your materials and things, and I think the past shifts as they come and they go, I think it appears to me that they have oftentimes been driven by the broker owner or the franchisor's view of what the consumer might like, you know, whether that's dress code as part of professionalism or franchise or not franchise, you know, culture and team building or not. And I think this time around, because of the phone and because of the power of the phone, it's really the consumer who's on the level playing field now with all the information that you have most of the time. How are you going to add value to that experience in new and innovative ways? And I think that's what distinguishes this shift from the ones that have preceded it.
Interesting when he said they did something out of necessity, right? Because 09 was hard times. So he's saying EXP, to some degree, was born out of a practical necessity need rather than simply a vision. And that was echoed 2 days ago when we were at the T3 Summit. We had the co-founder of Netflix there, CEO of Redbox, and the CEO of Moviefone. And he said that 50%, roughly, of the innovations which came from Netflix and companies like that came out of accidental necessity opportunities. They did not have a vision that they were going to do that. They wanted to do something and they moved along a path, and along that path, things were uncovered by staff or people apart and said, well, why don't we do this? And then we look and we go, whoa, man, these guys are brilliant. And he acknowledges now, he says, we in most cases stumbled into it.
Right. Yeah, no, just, I mean, tell you a story. I mean, that is absolutely sort of how, you know, we got to where we are today, but we look at it today and we use a platform, and I don't know, people may not be familiar with it, but we've got speedboats and desks and training rooms and staff centers in this world that really feels like a world. Greatly reduced cost, no redundancies in staffing, and despite some beliefs that I've read about recently, we probably have more access points and data points and integration points with our agents that allow for supervision and making sure that the practice is being conducted in the right way. But what we've learned, and you know, the byproduct was that you don't have to raise a whole lot of money. Right? The agent themselves, I don't know any other business like this one where people come to it generally having done something else, right? So we've got a cardiologist in New York City that helped propel us to launch in New York City, and he's one of our agents. So whether you're an educator, an entrepreneur, whatever you might have been in a past life, there's such a richness and diversity of that experience. And I think the byproduct is that our office now has served as one destination where agents like to go, restoring the value of the office experience, even as agents aren't going into offices anymore, but harness that, give people a reason, give your agents a reason to want to help you get to where the company should be overall, make them partners in the effort, and that's one of the things that's really
So again, a good message from EXP, and remember, they're not giving commercials here, we've asked them on stage, so they didn't ask to be here, they're not trying to sell you stuff. Your committee and your president and your CEO selected people who we thought could give you something to share about. So what's interesting is that EXP, virtual, online, all the kind of cool stuff, you could do things online. They haven't got the exclusivity on that. Keller Williams has great culture. They don't have the exclusivity on culture. Remax gives high commission splits. They're not the only ones that have high commission splits. Right? HFS does acquisitions. They don't have the exclusivity on acquisitions. Compass just did another one. I mean, so the initiatives and the strategies often used by companies that are succeeding, those are all strategies that you could look at and say, which pieces of those fit in my toolbox? Which ones can I use? Now we're going to do 2 more questions, but I'm looking at my clock here. We have about 10 minutes left, so I'd like to go through this line maybe twice more, maybe a minute each for the first question and a minute for the next question. The first question I'm going to ask you, and it's me now asking you, is I'd like you to tell me in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, something cool about your company. Something that you have done recently, are doing, if you're willing to share what you're going to be doing, but something that you feel makes your company better. So something that you would say, here's something which my organization does, which I am proud of as a leader. It's a cool product, it's a cool strategy, a cool initiative, because again, as we just said, copying in our industry is completely acceptable. Right? They're going to share something they do well so that you can learn from that. Then we're going to ask them, going forward in the next 3 to 5 years, where do they think our industry is going to be in some date in the future? They all will tell you they can't predict, and I will acknowledge they can't predict. I can't predict. I'm no Dalai Lama either. I have no clue. But the more you work, the more you read, the more you're involved, you start getting a feeling for where the water is flowing to, right? So I would like to know where the water is flowing to. So let's do the first question first. We can start anywhere. We can start with Steve. Tell us something cool about where you're working, the business you're working, and what are you doing that's awesome?
We're growing.
You're growing. Why are you growing?
Yeah, I think the moment that you stop growing, you stop breathing.
Okay.
And change and constant change is the difference between those companies that are successful and those who fail. And if you take a dip You have to assess that dip that moment. I had a risk-taking position where I bought contactually, right? I said, contactually looks like what'll be best for my independent contractors. So I brought contactually to the market, right? I was competing with Compass, who said they had the greatest CRM in the marketplace, then bought contactually. Whoa, you know, that's a day in the life of somebody who's competing. That's what life is about. Mm-hmm. So contactually was better than what they said was better than what I bought. Mm. How's that work? Mm-hmm. So every day the landscape changes, and I think the biggest single thing that we do as Pacific Sotheby's is change with the landscape every day.
So takeaway, right? Always grow, change with the landscape, and understand that whoever you might have a relationship or partnership with, that in its own could change. And that's not okay. It's business. It's normal. It's life. Suck it up, deal with it, right? And move on. And don't walk around with a bear with a sore head for the next year. Oh, man, they bought contactually. Okay, get over it. Go to the event one day, get it out of your system, and get on with it. Keller Williams has had a relationship with companies, and then they were bought by, what was it, Market Leader, which was bought by Triller, then bought by Zillow. That's where we are in the industry. The leaders might change, and it's okay. All right, tell us something cool about Zillow.
Yeah, so we're a 13-year-old company with 4,500 people. It's easy to get complacent. So last year we had $1 billion in revenue. But also last year we decided to reinvent ourselves and basically start an incubation within the company. A year ago we started Zillow Offers, where we started to buy properties. And this last quarter we bought almost 1,000 homes, sold 500 of them. We're ramping up to be in the next couple of years, probably buying 5,000 homes a month, selling 5,000 homes a month. And that just came out of this place where we had to begin to move quickly. We saw what the consumer wanted, what the consumer was asking for, and it needed to jump in front of it, as our CEO says. So the elephant can dance, they just have to hear the music. And we're listening to the music.
Yep. So market's changing. A company which is no longer a startup, 14 years is no longer a startup. They are as much part of the furniture as all of us are. They've been around 14 years. They are part of the industry. We can no longer say this is the new big bad wolf. They are just like us, part of the industry. They didn't create iBuyer. They saw it somewhere else, right? You woke up one day and you read and you said, oh, what's this? How's this working? And they've decided to react against it and do something about it. Now, don't get scared that they're going to take over the market. 5,000 homes a month is a lot, but 5,000 times 12 is 60,000. That's 1% of the market. There's still 99% left for you guys. Don't see one thing as all-encompassing. That's their market share. 1% is great. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome. The other 99, we'll divide that up between ourselves, right? It's okay. All right. Mary, tell us something cool about a very awesome company, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we are Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I mean, that we have a brand and a cachet in that brand that is second to none, in my opinion, of course. And I do think that has merit. I embrace competition because I think it makes us better and it drives us to be who we should be, which is continually changing and better as people overall. One of the things that we have done very well, particularly in the last year, is there are always new agents that come into the business. And the challenge is keeping them in the business and getting them successful quickly. So what we feel like we have done very well is revamped our training program to incorporate more of the technology and the tools, the way that these agents think and need to grow their business very quickly. And so we've established a more of that growth pattern that Steve was referencing, but sustainably. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that it will bode well for us 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now when I'm far gone, to be honest. And part of my job is to make this company healthy 50 years from now when I think I'm going to be in the ground. And that's okay with me. But I do think it's important that we continue to have a culture.
That would put you in the ground when you're 10 years younger than I am today. I really am not looking forward to that. Buddy. And I'm not going for the fact that you have a perfect brand either. So there you go.
Well, I'm not here to spar about brand. What I am here to say is that I think it's important that we do, that where we're going is to continue to know that where we've been is not the best place to be. And so as we continue to innovate and we grow and we change and we train and we provide the tools and services, and I'll just dive into that for just a moment, is that, this is where being part of a large parent company, which is now the #1 company in the country, it is fabulous to be able to have that collective spend on the technologies as to where we're going, because it needs to be a business of people first, powered by technology, not the other way around.
So clever is that every company should use its best attributes and its assets to maximize its strength. They have size, they have money, then you should tell everybody and you should use it. If you are smaller and you don't have that, you might have agility, right? So every person has some advantage. You take that advantage and you make that your strength. Berkshire Hathaway is a big company. They sometimes move slowly. But when they move, they move. That's okay. So it's huge strength to have that credibility behind you. I mean, would love to have Warren as a partner. What a great partner to have.
I'd like to have his
What a
wallet.
great, he might be retiring soon, but a great partner to have nevertheless. Jason, you're one of those young guys that tend to be moving fast, and then you're somewhere in space.
I tell you, I'm not feeling young, but I will say this. I think what we've done and what really has helped us is that we've transformed and really deliberately tried to transform the relationship between the brokerage and the agent, believing that really the agent's the only asset that the brokerage has. And so in 2013, we went public a little bit of a non-traditional way. We did a reverse merger, started out on the OTC, we migrated to NASDAQ last May, but that's done a couple of things. So our agents are getting equity in the public company just for doing things that good agents are going to do anyway, closing their first transaction of the year, capping, helping the company grow. Perhaps they're iconic. We've got a program where you can voluntarily receive a portion of your commission in the form of company stock, but culturally is really where it's made a difference. In fact, there's probably a gentleman in the room here, one of our first agents in San Diego, who received a piece of mail that was intended for me in California. I'm in Massachusetts a couple of years ago, and he called me up and told me about it, and he said, and I said to him, Tom, send something in, we'll reimburse you for the postage when you forward it to me. And he said, you don't need to reimburse me because it's my company, right? So as we start to embark on new initiatives, as we start to look at, we have our platform now, and we've got really not just the sales force of 17,000 plus that are representing consumers, but we've got a sales force of 17,000 plus that are thinking about ways in which we could use our platform to help better the lives of service professionals in other industries. And they get behind everything we do. They have a great tolerance for frustration that accompanies rapid growth, and they're in it for the long term. So I think it's been a very dynamic shift, and it's just been a very powerful thing.
So they give shares to their people because they are a public company. That's one of their attributes, one of their assets. You might say, well, I can't do that, or you might say it's not important. It's both. They have it, why not use it? Another company which might be a public company like Berkshire Hathaway is not giving away Berkshire Hathaway shares because their shares are like $120,000 a share, right? But they use other strengths. Sotheby's has, what, a 300 or 400 year history into luxury, into fine art, into boats and expensive stuff. They don't have to define luxury. The word almost by its definition defines luxury. So you pick what's your niche. Some of you might say, well, I'm in a luxury market. Well, then Sotheby's is probably better for you than EXP.
I didn't know till right then that I loved you.
But if you said, well, I like virtual, I like online, I want to work from home, I'm not in a luxury market, I'm going to deal in another, then maybe this might work for you. You might say, well, I want lots of tools and I like the steadfastness and I want to be sure that I'm with the stability of a big term company, then home services might be for you. There is a company for each of you, and they're all good companies. They're just different. And it's okay to be different. All right? You're not on the real estate space, but you've got some cool tech. So tell us quickly, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, one cool thing about HomeSnap.
So one cool thing is that the company, which now has 1 million agents, we just announced that last week, with access to HomeSnap, has built this incredible, fast-growing, successful tech company, working with the industry instead of against it. And I'm really proud about that. We have a consumer portal with the Broker Public portal. We're in partnership with them. We've delivered over 1 million free leads to agents and brokerages. And that's awesome, right? We have no advertising on our site. Our belief in mobile, as we talked about today, our app is free to brokerages and MLSs. Go download it. It's awesome. I can't tell you the years and the over 120 people that work so hard to make this thing better and better and better and better for you to be able to run your business from your phone. And we're really proud of it, and it's free, so use it. So we're really looking forward to, there's one other area about HomeSnap, but I went over 60 seconds that I wanted to talk about it later. You talk more than me. I'm learning from you. So the other thing I just wanted to say is, one thing that is so important for agents and brokerages, especially with the millennials. Building your own brand online today, you can do that. And I'm not talking about spending tons of money on advertising. I'm talking about the brand of the brokerage, the brand of the agent. Do it. Online reviews, people that love you, get the word out, get a Google profile. I'm amazed less than 2% of agents have a profile on Google. So if a millennial searching for real estate agents that are awesome, you don't show up. That's crazy. Do it. And realize that you have the power. And that's what all our tooling is designed to do, is to give the power back to the agent and the brokerage to be able to do well. And I'm proud of that.
Use the tech that's out there as a power, as a tool to do whatever you're doing better, faster, quicker, cheaper, smarter. All right, we're going this way. We're going to end with Steve. Let's go back this way. Tell me, future, a year or two, or 3 or 4 down the line, what do you see different, where we're going to be?
Well, I think in addition to potentially the lending side of the business driving the relationship at its origins, I think, probably less franchising, perhaps, because I think that it's very difficult to
move. Less franchisors or franchisees?
Franchisees.
Less franchisees.
And perhaps at the desire of the franchisor in some circumstances. I mean, I think it's much harder to be agile or to move with velocity, like you said, when you've got all these effectively independent with some autonomy on their own in different territorial areas with different cost structures and things. I think it's difficult to pivot in that environment. I think the closing process, digital closings, everybody's going to love it when that finally comes to being. It seems inevitable to me. So I would say that, and to me, those are the two.
So the interesting part is there are other people in our transaction, which we are fully aware of, the mortgage, the title inspection, home inspection, all that kind of stuff, and they too are looking at all of the pieces in the transaction. They're saying, how can they dance, right? How can the elephant dance better? And they're looking for ways to do that. They don't know, we don't know, but we know that they would like to participate in our transaction, not do your job. They just want to try and get your lead the same way that you're giving them a lead or vice versa. And we generally think that the other vendors are wanting to participate more aggressively going forward. Mary, how do you feel about the future, 2, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, I feel good about it because I'm planning on being here. But I think it's important to remember that the amount of information that the consumers are receiving are overlapping. So for every one of you that thinks that that person is only on your customer client database, you are wrong, and you need to be able to cipher through what exactly you're going to present to them, and that's our job, is to support the technology that makes you rise to the top in the eyes of your consumers, because we need to use predictive analytics, we need to use AI, we need to use all of the different machine technologies to work to our advantage. But what you can't lose sight of is that there are 18 of you all vying for the same client every single day, and they're going to get confused. That is why we as an organization have done the one-stop shopping, where we have lending, title, escrow, insurance, the whole 9 yards, because the consumers want to go to one place. They don't want to get confused, and I think the future is going to cause a little bit more confusion to the consumers to a certain extent, because they're going to get so much that it's going to be even more important for all of you to sort through it and say, don't listen to the noise, focus on this one thing, and be the expert that you know you are.
So many people believe that we've been talking about one-stop shopping, soup to nuts, cradle to grave, for the best part of 3 decades. So it's been a long time. But the majority of leaders will tell you that we actually think for the first time it's within our sights. It's within our reach. It's actually potentially possible in the next, half a decade, not tomorrow, the next half a decade or so, that it could be possible as a result of the outside players wanting to step in, maybe yet again because they've tried in the past, maybe because of the technology enabling it, maybe because its time has simply come, I don't know. But everybody's saying that it looks like this time around, when we're going to try to do it, we might actually be able to run that mile under the 4 minutes, right? We've been trying to break that barrier, and when Bannister broke it, everybody after that did it easily. What do you think about the future, Curt?
The consumers are going to continue to demand that the transaction is easier. They're going to continue to demand that the agents that they partner with provide them service at a higher touch level, and it's more intuitive and it's more in the way that those consumers want to interact. And that technology is going to drive both of those things. And so we're going to have an increase in the amount of tech that actually does drive a better consumer experience, a faster transaction, a cleaner closing, and a higher touch point for the really good agents who understand it, and they're going to be absolutely successful and drive the future.
Take the analogy, when you buy an airplane ticket, you no longer go to the counter, you do it online. You often don't go to the shop, but you use Amazon. You often do your banking online. If you already do that elsewhere, why on earth do you think it's not going to happen here? It has to happen here. You're just resisting. If you are, I'm not saying that all of you are, but if you are, it's simply because it's your backyard. But we're doing it everywhere else, or almost, and every day more and more. I mean, the Uber and the kind of stuff. It's probably going to happen here sooner than you think. Steve, take us away.
You know, I was thinking about in a space that we had 3,000 or 4,000 people 14 years ago, and I invited Richard Barton to come talk. Zillow was at its very embryo stages, and Mr. Barton got up and he talked about what he was going to be able to do and what technology was going to be able to bring to the real estate business and so forth. And my agents decided to boo him because they were so disappointed in his zestimate.
I remember.
When you wave a red flag in front of a bull, you end up in trouble. And if there was anything I adapted that day, was that technology needed to be allowed to improve the ability of my agents, right, and the effective ability of my agents. And I can tell you from that day to today, Zillow has helped us make more transactions than they will ever take away from us. That's a fair thing to say. I have agents who have made fortunes by using Zillow. That can be clear of HomeSnap and everybody else in the technology business. My thought is that if we can coincide with the technology business, rather than try to create value by integrating with the technology business, we'll be what we've always been. We'll be the contributors to the American dream that need to be proud of doing the job that AI and the rest of technology can't do. And when I get up in the morning, I say to myself, I'm going to help somebody buy a home. My people, my brand, my life is about helping somebody get the home that they want to live and breathe and raise their family in. Technology won't do that for us. It'll just give us the ability to do so much more, so much faster. And it will create for us the most incredible world we've ever seen. I hear people all the time say, oh my God, I wouldn't even bring a child into this world. They didn't live in 1963. They should have been here in 67 when everything was being burned down. The world is better than it's ever been. The platform for us to be successful in the real estate business and deliver the greatest product on earth is better than it's ever been. And by God, I do not have to spend $100 million in technology. I have to adapt to the technology so that my independent contractors can choose to be better than any other independent contractors. And by the way, you ought to work for somebody that's in your business. Working for somebody in the technology business and trying to teach them real estate is a bad trip. Working for somebody in the real estate business who's trying to learn technology is a far better opportunity. So let's work together and let's build the dream, and let's have more companies that do $10 billion really quickly.
Ladies and gentlemen, your panel today. Thank you very much. John, thank you. Jason, Mary.
Thank you to our panelists and Mr. Swanepoel. We appreciate your amazing insight into the world of real estate. We have breakout sessions starting now, and we would like to thank you for joining us at the Elevate Expo 2019.